Think about the species on the planet that has the most impact on the possibility field, the probability field, and the actual world that we live in. And humans quickly rise to the top. Now, think about the pattern of energy, the technology that governs human behavior. If human behaviors are the most impactful species on the planet, and that impact is driven by human behavior, what technology affects human behavior more than any other technology? And the answer is cult or culture, which at its core are habits. They are the default mode, unquestioned, unconscious habits that we each do on a daily basis. Now, there are some things that we think about on a daily basis. Should I wear this color or that color? Should I eat this food or this food? Right? But the habit is eating at all. The habit is our regular dishes, the places we go to eat regularly. The habit is the car that we drive. The habit is the house we return to. And due to the limitations of conscious processing power, 95% of all human behavior at any given moment is habit-driven, is culturally driven. Now, we tend to talk of culture when we talk of larger groups, and we tend to talk of identity when we talk of individuals. You and I have an I, an ego, and identity, a pattern that the I attaches itself to, an identity. We are attached when we say, that's me, right? I think this, I feel this, I do this, I believe this. We attach ourselves to our identity, to our habits with belief, with repetition, and once the pattern is going, inertia ensures that it's easier to keep going than it is to evaluate and reevaluate. It's also the case that with just attention, very much like a flashlight, we cannot focus on all that is all the time. We can turn our attention to this thing, and this thing, and this thing, and in the meantime, 95% of our repetitive thoughts, right, form an identity, a pattern that just goes on and on and on until we have a reason to re-examine, to turn the light on that particular aspect and tweak it. And then we have to establish a new pattern. So 95% of the most influential species on the planet to both our own well-being and the planet's well-being is habit-driven, is identity-driven. And our personal identities default to the cult or culture that we belong to. The cult or culture that we belong to informs the language we learn, the default diet, the default routine, the default media, right? 95% of our personal identities default to the cult identity. And that's why when you go to a particular country where a cult identity has established itself, you find Thai food in Thailand, right? You find Indian food in India. Now, why do all the Indians agree to eat and like Indian food? Don't they have any diversity? I mean, surely they like Italian better than Indian, or, right? But no. 95% of Indians, 95% of the time, are going to eat Indian food, right? Now, in some cultures, mixing pot cultures such as America, right, it would be more family cult driven. You were raised eating this food, right? And you remember certain favorite tastes and certain things, and so you go back to that, and you listen to songs generally with English lyrics, right? And so you establish more of perhaps a family food tradition. But the cult informs the religion, right? This is the name of God in this country. In this other country, the name of God is this other name, right? This other country, they have another name for God, right? And in this cult, in this culture, the God looks like this and values this. But in this other cult, in this other culture, the God looks like this and values this, right? And then you have subcultures, right? In this class, the working class, we work hard, 9 to 5, we do this, we resent our bosses. But in this other class, we invest, right? We pick managers to invest our money, and we do this, right? And in this other class, we do this, right? We serve this group, right? So there are sub-identities. Now, it's been known for some time that we have all of the land, all of the natural resources, all of the money, and all of the technologies on Earth to be carbon negative, meaning to produce more oxygen and sequester more carbon each year than as if we were not around, right? If a human being plants, for example, 100 trees a year, that costs all of $100. Over a lifetime, right? That's, 7,000 trees. Well, those 7,000 trees, or $100 a year, bring more carbon out of the atmosphere than we generate. And so every year that humans are on the planet, the air gets cleaner and the weather gets more stable. Right? But that's not what we're doing. Our cult cuts down more than 1,000 trees per person over a lifetime, and many people don't plant a single tree. Why? Is that intelligent, or is that the cult? Is that the unconscious default? Right? We actually pay farmers in our cult to grow crops using chemical fertilizers and then to plow those crops under the ground, because that's how the cult works, right? And you'd think, well, right, there are hungry people over here that are dying from lack of nourishment, right? Our cult grows potatoes and wheat and refines them. But what about asparagus? Isn't like that, wheat produces an acid that accelerates dental cavities 3 times more than rye. But we're eating wheat and we're not eating rye, right? And so why, right? Well, you go to the restaurant, and in a cult that has converged on a particular pattern, right? Everyone grows wheat, everyone refines wheat, everyone mixes things with wheat, and you go to a restaurant and there it is, wheat bread, wheat pizza, wheat this, wheat that. But in another cult, right, they use sourdough ancient grains that taste more interesting, that provide more protein, that produce less acid, and don't require as much dental care. But we're not that cult. We are this cult. Right? So 95% of the behavior of the most influential species on the planet is governed by cult thinking. Initially, we received the download of our cult, our language, our diet, our habits, our education, and our lack of education, and our lack of habits. And within more individualistic cults, right, there are cults of the individual where everyone in the cult tries to focus on the individual. Now, that's not actually individual thinking if everyone focuses on the individual. Now, there are other more group or family-oriented cults where everyone focuses on the family, focuses on the community, focuses on the ethnic identity. They are also not individuals. They are cult members. And to belong to a cult, one must conform to certain protocols and must not cross certain lines. Right? We have different ways of throwing people out of the cult with judgments, with slurs, with derogatory comments that communicate that this is not a cult member. Right? Now, here's the last and perhaps most important thing to understand. We've established that human behavior is affecting ourselves and all of Earth's ecology more than any other pattern of energy, right? And that 95% of that behavior is cult-oriented. It's conformist, it's fitting into what the group, what the family is doing. Now, perhaps the most striking realization of all is that every single cult institution and cult habit can easily be improved, can easily become more intelligent by a factor of 1,000%. Right? Your cult, whatever cult you belong to, if you pick each of its areas, right? So each cult breaks things up in different ways, but in our cult, we say that there is the education system, there is the governmental system, there is the prison system, there is the justice system, there is the health system, right? There is the legal system, right? There is the traffic safety and road transportation system, right? There is the marriage system. There is the friendship system. In our cult, every single one of these institutions can easily become 1,000% more intelligent. Now, what is intelligent? Intelligence measures and can be measured by the efficiency with which a cult transforms energy into sustainable well-being. So what's sustainable well-being? Well, for a human being, right, sustainable means that the habit doesn't taper off. Cocaine feels great for a few weeks. It's wonderful. If you're looking for unsustainable well-being, just look no further, right? Cocaine, amphetamines, MDMA. I mean, it's so easy to have unsustainable well-being. Sugar, right? Pizza. It's easy. Unsustainable well-being, credit cards. It's wonderful. You don't have to know a goddamn thing. You don't even have to get a job. You just rack up credit card debt. So unsustainable well-being means something that makes you feel good for a very short period of time and then makes you feel worse for a long time. Now, unsustainable well-being is the opposite. It often makes you feel uncomfortable for a short term and then makes you feel great for a long time. That's called sustainable well-being, right? You train, right? You train and get a job and go through the discomfort of learning that job, and then you provide a large amount of value, right, for a long time, right? You earn a skill and learn to make money and discipline yourself to save that money, and then you make money over a longer time. So there's a tension, right? And so cults that are vision-oriented go through a process of short-term discomfort for long-term benefit. Cults that are expedient and lack vision get short-term pleasure and then experience chronic long-term suffering, right? And so every cult has its mix of that. There is not a, and so intelligence measures the efficiency with which energy, which comes in the form of time, that's one form of energy, comes in the form of money, a symbol of time, another form of energy. It comes in the form of natural resources, right? So a culture that is highly intelligent creates sustainable well-being for all of its members with very little time, very little money, very little natural resources, right? But the well-being keeps getting better and better sustainably, right? So that's right. That's a highly intelligent culture. Now, what is well-being? It is the fulfillment of our human needs, first of all. And that last word, need, is instructive, right? Meaning if we do not meet our need for oxygen, we die. If we do not meet our need for survival, we die, right? If we don't meet our need for security, we die faster. High cortisol, high stress levels because we're not secure, we die faster, right? So our needs are to survive, to be secure in that survival, to experience and create love and belonging, to earn and develop self-esteem, to discover and develop our gifts, our talents, to create value and abundance for ourselves and other people with those talents, and to serve and be a part of something bigger than ourselves. Those are our needs, right? If we're not doing that well, our needs are not being fulfilled. And beyond our needs, we have preferences. Oh, I really like this type of cake, or wow, that woman over there is really cute, right? We have preferences, and our preferences are different. And after we fulfill our needs, we each seek to fulfill our preferences. So an intelligent cult can be measured in two ways. One, how many of its members have met all of their needs and are exploring the fulfillment of their preferences. That's the first metric, right? And we see quickly that we have a relatively low intelligent cult because many members of our cult are not secure in their survival. They haven't gotten to level 2. And the majority of our cult members do not feel deeply and fully loved, right? Nor do they have high levels of self-esteem, right? So the majority of our members, right, have not gotten solidly to level 3, right? So low levels of need fulfillment. So we're not very intelligent on that metric. Now, the second metric to measure the intelligence of a cult is how efficiently it does that. So let's say there's cult A that has met all of the needs of its members, and cult B that has also met all of the needs of its members, right? They all feel they're all surviving. They feel secure in their survival. They all have a very high sense of love and belonging, high levels of self-esteem. They like themselves, this, that, the other. They've developed their skills, their abilities. They're bringing superabundance to their cult members, right, by sharing their gifts and abilities, and they're serving something greater than themselves. So they've done all that beautifully, right? And they're exploring their preferences. Oh, I like this and I like that, right? And they're exploring their creativity and their preferences. Well, how many trees get cut down per person to do all that? How much gasoline gets expended to do all of that? How much water is pumped out of the ground per person, per capita, to do all of that? How much money does it take to make sure that each person meets all their needs and explores their preferences, right? Right? How many, how much bleach, how much this, you add up all the natural resources consumed per capita, right? You just take that for the whole cult, the whole culture. You add that all up. And then you take the amount of time that each person spends. Like, do they meet their needs by age 10, by age 12, by age 40? Do they meet their needs by age 50? Like, how long does it take for that cult to realize that goal? How much time does it take per capita? Then you compare that to another cult that also meets the needs and preferences of its people. You see, and if one cult takes 100 trees per person, and the other cult plants 100 trees per person, you see there's a difference in intelligence. And if one cult spends $1 million per person to get to the point where they meet their needs, and the other cult spends 100,000, you can say that this cult is 10 times more efficient, more intelligent than this cult, because they're getting to the same point, but they're consuming less energy. In the field of electric vehicles, for example, you have the measurement of how much range per kilowatt, and that's considered the intelligence of design, right? Because if one car goes an inch per kilowatt and another car goes 10 miles per kilowatt, right? The one is thousands of times more efficient, more intelligent. The design is more intelligent, right? And so the art of cultural design is not only meeting all of the needs and all of the preferences for all of the cult members, right? It's how efficiently, how much money, how much time, how much natural resources are expended to do so. And is that a sustainable amount, right? Because obviously if it takes a billion trees per person and you have a billion people in the cult, and the entire planet is deforested, for example, it's not a sustainable amount because, very quickly all those trees are cut down and then the grandchildren do not have any trees to cut down. So the model collapses, right? So that's the the final metric of intelligence is it sustainable, right? So you have how many people are meeting their needs? Are they meeting their needs fully? Right? The efficiency with which that is met, and then finally, is that sustainable? And this measures, right? This covers, right? This arena of cultural design and cultural intelligence is the single most influential technology on the planet today. And ironically, it is the only technology that there are no books on, no courses in, that no one is developing, right? And that is also often the case in low intelligent cultures, that the most important things are not discussed. And the least important things are discussed at great lengths. A lot of time, money, and natural resources is spent exploring the least important things, and no time, money, and natural resources is spent exploring the most important things. Well, that's poor cultural design. So welcome to this arena. And in the link below, you'll find a link to a website where, 10xculture.org, where we start to look at what is cultural design and how do we do it.